thank you for viewing this recording of a free event provided by Next Village San Francisco for our community. Next Village San Francisco is a local nonprofit providing services and support that empower seniors to live independently in their own homes. We welcome people who want to keep connected with their community as members, volunteers, and supporters. We host 30 to 40 free activities and events each month for the public, and our members have access to our network of volunteers. Learn more and get involved at nextvillagesf.org. We hope you enjoy this video.
Thank you everyone for attending today's technology teach-in. We'll be covering podcasts, what they are, and how to listen to them. We are lucky enough to have 3 people presenting today. So in a moment, I'll turn it over to Lynn and Miriam, the hosts of Not Born Yesterday, the Next Village sponsored podcast. And then after that, Harrison is going to talk a bit about what a podcast is, how to listen, and then the different types of platforms. So we already went over the events, and Miriam and Lynn, I'm going to pass it off to you. And yeah, go ahead and give us a little introduction on Not Born Yesterday. Thank you so much for your time today.
Well, we're glad to be here. Not Born Yesterday is a podcast that deals with the issues of aging. And we talk about everything that affects everybody. So I like to think it's not just for aging people, it's for everyone. Because the subjects, in fact, the subjects you just talked about that you're having, we had an episode on pets for seniors. We had one on what happens when a friend has dementia. We've talked to people who are trying to get seniors involved in climate action. That was kind of applied to the tunnel top. So we're all looking at things that are affecting our lives, and I think it's important that people don't think of aging or a podcast about aging as something negative and just for old people. And we had one that was the most popular one I think so far was called Right Sizing. And it's about people who are downsizing their homes and what they can do, they should keep, what's important to them. And that had so many listeners, and that obviously doesn't apply just to seniors. So some of the other subjects we've talked about are scams. And I know Next Village has had many sessions on that, but the scams are out there. And they keep on going. And just this morning, I was listening to the radio, and they were talking about cyber scams. So, and people who bought Bitcoin, and how many scams there were involved with that. So, we want people to be aware of what's happening in the world, no matter what age you are. We talked about parenting our parents. That's one that everybody I know is very interested in. If they're lucky enough to have parents who are still alive, they understand the issues of how they're still our parents, and we have to tread softly when we have suggestions on what they might do. And we just interviewed last week a man who runs an advertising agency focusing on people over 60. And he started talking about how, I asked him, have you had any campaigns that failed? And he said, yes, we did, because we aimed the advertising at the adult children of the people. It was about senior housing. And, we didn't take into account what the seniors themselves wanted. So if you've listened to the podcast, we cover many, many different topics. We are always interested in what our audience wants to talk about. Some of these we got because the one about pets, we got because I had a friend who always was adopting senior pets. We did one on dementia because Lynn had a friend who was starting to have some of those symptoms. So we're interested in whatever everybody else is interested in, and please contact us if you have any ideas. Lynn,
Camille, can you pull up the list from the website, from any of our episodes? There's a whole long list of what we've done, the whole 26, I believe we've done, something like that.
Absolutely. Just give me one moment.
And while she's doing that, we feature the podcast every month in our newsletter, and we talk to you about what's coming up. And there's a link right in our newsletter that you can click that will take you to their podcasts. So you can stay up to date by looking that way. They release two episodes per month. So
there we
we'll
go.
always let you know what's there.
Can you guys see
If
that?
you scroll down, does it show all the ones that we've done? There we go.
There we go. Yeah.
There
So
we
there's
go.
it really just keeps going. There's so much good information here.
And they don't get old. They're there forever, or unless
Right.
until we take them off, I guess.
Quite the range of topics.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can see how much energy they've poured into this, and we really want to encourage everyone to listen. There's really wonderful topics being covered, and you can learn anything so much from each episode. Everyone can.
And one of the things that we found with older adults is we're not used to podcasts. So that's why this program today is so good, because so many people say, when can I watch? And it's on whatever, it's not a watch, it's not video, it's audio, and it's easy to get to, and it's on all the time, anytime you want it. It's not like a radio program being on at 2:00 on Fridays. It's on all the time whenever you want to link onto it. And some of the ones that have been interesting to us is volunteering, ageism in the workplace. We've got listeners who from all over the country, and actually from all over the world, people are listening, because friends of ours who friends of friends. And I was with a gentleman the other night from India who's listened, and he said, I never thought about purpose. I need to find purpose in my life. Thank you so much. So we're having a lot of topics that, and it is very hopeful. We don't do stuff that's really depressing, but it's very hopeful.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I've just put the link to this page in the chat so anyone can access the full list of podcast episodes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Of course. Awesome.
So we interview people, I'm sure as Miriam said, Miriam, I said, I call her Mimsy. We were college roommates, and so I still call her Mimsy, but her professional name is Miriam. Now I forgot what I was going to say. I'm not going to say a senior moment, because we don't talk about that. So
Right.
I'll stop for a minute.
But I just want to reiterate that if you have listened, and if you're going to listen, I would say tell your friends about it, of all ages, because I'm thinking about the one on climate action, because that's such an important thing. We see this now with the floods and the fires, that you don't have to be an older adult to be concerned about the environment. And the people from Climate Action gave us a link. So every day now I get an email telling me 5 things I can do to help repair, I guess we'd have to say, the environment. And some of it is call your Congress people, some of it is talk to your power companies, whatever it is. It really makes you feel like you're doing something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree.
Oh, I know what I was going to say is that so much of what we are exposed to comes from the media. And we've talked about media, images in the media, television, radio, commercials, videos, movies. Just, the negative images of older people make us feel older. And so it's counteracting those images that we're seeing, and talking to people about how do you create movies and commercials and TV shows that show older people as older people are in all of the various aspects.
And I should just tell you that right now, the most recent one we just released is about what happens when a friend has dementia. Because I know a lot of us are seeing that. And we're releasing one this Friday from about a woman who's written a book called Elderhood. And she has said that there's so many stages in childhood, and there's so many stages in adulthood, that no one thinks about elderhood. That you could say it starts at 60, and which means for some people that could last 30, 40 years. And one of her key points is, and as a physician herself, is that we have to change the way medicine is delivered to older people. Mm-hmm. And we're also hoping to talk to someone who talks about how you internalize your feelings of aging. That it's if you think you're old, then you're going to act old, and things are going to happen to you. But if you think you're young, it really happens. We talked to somebody a few weeks ago who said he was 65, and he said, I feel like I'm 35. I just know I'm older when I wake up and everything hurts. So everybody can relate to what we talk about, I hope.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm curious if any of the people on this call have had an opportunity to listen to a podcast or our podcast, or trying to figure out how to do that by being on this call.
Yeah, I will say I think several people have their audio and video turned off right now just
I
because
see.
we are recording. But I really encourage everyone to listen. I think it's a really wonderful podcast and really anyone can learn anything. I think it's covered a lot of topics that are hard to talk about, but that do need to be spoken about. And then also a lot of topics that are just super interesting. I love the fashion one. I actually sent that one to my mom and she shared it with her friends and they adored it. It was just this incredible episode that talked about something that you kind of want to ask questions about, but feel a little nervous too. And I think you guys do a really wonderful job. So thank you so much for all the content that you've made. We're doing great. We
I
appreciate
have to
it.
say though, some of the topics are difficult. I mean, it's hard to think about, your parenting your parents when they need you, or it's hard to think about what happens when someone has dementia. And some of the things we had one early on about what happens when someone dies. I mean, there are physical things you have to do, papers you have to get signed, and nobody tells you this. Nobody prepares you for it. And the man who wrote the book about it was a lawyer himself, and he said to the rest of his family when his mother died, "Oh, don't worry, I'm a lawyer. I know how to do this." And he made myriad mistakes. And he said, "Boy, if I'm making mistakes, I'm sure a lot of people are." So he wrote a book about it. So again, I think it's for everyone, but we are looking at issues of aging and ageism.
Yeah. Well, do you have any last comments? I'm gonna stop you guys there so we can move on to how to access your wonderful podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys for presenting. We really appreciate the time that you took to join us and share that today. Yeah, and now we'll pass it over to Harrison. Harrison, thank you so much for doing the presentation today.
So today we're talking about podcasts, how to access them, some of the platforms that you use, and some tips and tricks. And then I'll show you a little bit of a demo around some of the different apps that are available, what I use, what I listen to, things like that. And at the end, we can have questions related to this or just any other tech questions you have. Cool. So we'll start by, what is a podcast, right? So it's a series of spoken word digital audio files that a user can download to a personal device for easy listening. And this does not mean just your iPhone. You could listen to them on your laptop. You could listen to them on an iPad or any other sort of listening device if you had an iPod as well. Just anything that can support audio playing. And you can plug in some headphones, will do just fine. For this purpose, I'm going to show you on my iPhone, but across all of the Mac or Apple devices, the interface is pretty much the same. So who's listening? So podcasts are extremely popular right now. So I was looking at some surveys yesterday when I was building the slide deck. There are roughly 48 to 50 million podcast episodes created. Roughly 50% of the US population say they listen to a podcast right now. And about 16 million people say they regularly listen to a podcast. And I would consider myself to be one of those. I probably consume about 2 or 3 hours of podcast content just a day. At different stages, I listen to different things depending on my interest, but I'll kind of talk about that in a little bit. Some of them are more passive, where you can just have somebody talking at you, or require a little bit more attention that I listen to when I'm like on a run or just taking a stroll to the park or something like that. So we'll talk about that. When do I listen to podcasts? You can listen to them whenever, really. Just think of it kind of like music. I listen to it when I'm cleaning the house, doing dishes. Sometimes when I'm cooking and my partner's not home and I just want to zone out, I put my headphones in, listen to podcasts. I think my biggest one here is when I go on a walk. So I try to go on a walk around noon, step away from my computer since I've been working on it all morning. I walk through Golden Gate Park and just got a podcast on. I listen to them a lot when I'm commuting or traveling. So for example, when I go to the office downtown and I'm sitting on the Muni bus, listen to a podcast. It's a great time that, just to kind of consume some media, learn something new. And then, also hold space that you can listen to it as like a form of entertainment and when you're relaxing, right? I think there's been plenty of times where I've just been like laying on the couch at 9 o'clock and instead of having the TV on, I just like throw on a podcast that I want to finish, or just a different way to consume media than staring at a TV screen, right? So there's really no limit to when you can listen to a podcast. On the traveling, commuting part, I'll touch on, there's some download features that you can do. Of course, if you're like on a flight or somewhere that has bad service, like if you're on a road trip, you can pre-download the podcasts. That way, you don't need to rely on an active internet or Wi-Fi connection. So talk about that when we do the demo. So where do you find them? Pretty mainstream now. They're available on all sorts of different apps and interfaces. The one that I use the most is just the Apple Podcast app. Comes pre-installed on most iPhones, I believe. If not, you can grab it from the Apple Store. It's just Apple's pretty simple podcast app. Spotify also is getting into podcasts. Maybe you've heard of the Joe Rogan podcast. Not saying I recommend listening to that one, but that is the biggest podcast that was ever created. He has hundreds and hundreds of millions of listeners. It's insane. That one's on exclusively on Spotify. The last couple of Pocket Casts or Google Podcasts, they're all pretty much the same apps, right? So most of them, I would say 95% of what you're going to want to listen to are platform agnostic, meaning you don't have to be on a specific app to listen to them. There are some exceptions. Like I said, I think the Joe Rogan podcast is the biggest exception to that, where it's only available on Spotify because they have exclusive rights to that. But most, for the sake of most of the things you want to listen to, once a producer or a content creator releases an app or a podcast, it goes to all of the apps. So you're not tied to one in particular. What do I listen to? So I listen to all different sorts of things. Right? I listen to The Daily every morning. This is an excellent podcast that comes out of the New York Times. It's about 25 to 30 minutes and just covers a topic of the day of relevancy. So this morning was about Bitcoin, maybe just something that's in the news and relevant. So they talk about that. They bring on expert journalists. It's very well produced. Some other ones like This American Life. That one comes out of NPR. I love Ira Glass. I love all the stories that they talk about on This American Life. Some other ones, I listen to one Apple at work. So I work in IT, and this is a work-related podcast that I listen to. Covers a lot of relevant topics. Kind of helps me stay up on new technology and people that are doing interesting things in my field. So listen to that, and then some other ones to kind of cover off Freakonomics and revisionist history. I consider to be more of like a socioeconomic lens podcast. So looking at different issues and analyzing them in just a really nice, interesting way. Both of those are available, pretty mainstream. And then lastly, Dak Shepard, famous actor turned into a huge podcaster. He's probably the second most listened to podcaster of all time. This is just him kind of shooting the shit with some guests and his friends, and it's just a really like long format. Like we're talking like 2 hours long of just him and his co-host just talking to some interesting people. So that one's pretty passive. Like if I saw an episode that had, I don't know, the Coen brothers on it the other day, and I was like, great, I'm just gonna listen to that and like not have to pay attention to a lot of things and just like catch little things, have a laugh, learn something new. So that's a really great podcast. And I'll send out this slide deck after, and I can put together some recommendations of things that I would check out first. And then we talked about at the top of the hour, the Next Village podcast, right? So Not Born Yesterday, available on all of the platforms. I'll show you here in a second, how to search for that, where to look, how to subscribe. And so let's just hop into a demo. So I have my phone here. I'm going to stop this screen share. Does anyone have any questions immediately?
Oh, wait.
Yeah, good.
If we have a member for whom cost is a big factor, are some podcasts free in one venue as opposed to another, or are they all free, or it depends what you have to, I know Spotify you have to subscribe to, but is there a way for members to save money and still listen to what they want to hear?
Yeah, I think 95% of what you're going to want to listen to is all sort of free. I don't pay for a single podcast. The only thing I pay for is Spotify, but I don't pay for that from a podcast perspective. I just pay for that from a music perspective, but like the Apple Podcast here, pretty much all of them are free, and then all the apps. It's just kind of depends on the creator, but most of them are going to be completely free.
If I could add to that, and that was a good comment. There are podcasts that, for example, Fresh Air. I don't know how many of you listen to Fresh Air on public radio. That's completely free on here. However, you can pay to hear their podcasts earlier, and you can pay to hear them without commercials. And so there are podcasts that have you do that. But if you're just, I'm listening to a podcast on my phone, and if a commercial comes up, I just use that little 30-second button that you can see right there, and I fast forward through the commercials. And if you hit that, about 4 times, that's about how long their commercials are. So it is possible to pay for things, but you honestly should not have to ever pay for it.
Hi, I have a comment. This is Sandra. Jackie, I liked your comment about the 30-second button to not have to listen to the commercials. But Harrison, I didn't catch all of what you said about the podcast R.H. Gladwell. Is that Malcolm Gladwell?
Yes, that is Malcolm Gladwell's podcast.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Yeah, I like him. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that's another kind of good point on the Fresh Air one, is that a lot of the public radio shows, like Marketplaces on NPR at 4 o'clock every single day, Says You is on NPR. Like, these are all NPR programs that they just upload to the podcast apps, like their archives, their libraries. So, like, for example, if I wanted to go back, I could listen to almost every single Marketplace episode. But they put it on maybe like 30 minutes or an hour after it airs. And that's the same across the board with like Fresh Air, for example. You can see this is episode 5,343. So they have like tons of just shows that you could listen to on the radio, but if you wanted to catch them on demand or listen to it, it's convenient for you. Most of the NPR related programming is on podcasts.
Harrison, could I just add that if people are going to a podcast and it says subscribe or follow, that doesn't mean that you're subscribing or following to anything except that particular podcast, and that again is free. It just gives the producers an idea of how many people are listening.
Yeah, totally, and it's becoming a little bit more and more common. Like, if I don't have a good example, like the subscribe, like the NPR one, like for a very nominal fee, you could pay just to have early release content or like ad free, but most of them are you'll know explicitly if you're signing up to like subscribe for a paid subscription. I listen to all sorts of weird crime shows as well. So let's just go for the top here, which is the podcast app. This is the Apple Podcast app. I'm signed into my Apple ID, which means that it's remembering the things I listen to and the shows that I sort of subscribe to. So if we'll just go into the Not Born Yesterday podcast, you can just search for it. There's a couple of different things here at the bottom. I already pre-populated it here. So Not Born Yesterday, you just type that in by name.
There's an issue that there's also another podcast called Not Born Yesterday, as you can see right below NBY.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So make sure to click on the pink icon with the calendar.
And it shows you the whoever the producer is, right? So you can see the Next Village SF is who released this one. So when you come in here, mine is going to look a little bit different because I've already subscribed to it. But if I do, let's just go back. You'll see this little plus button up here, and that just means subscribe to updates on the show. It doesn't mean subscribed to a payment service or anything like that. It just means that you're interested in following this show and their activity. So if I subscribe, what it's going to do is every time a new episode is released, it's going to put it into my queue. So you'll see, like if I go to this at the very bottom left, there's a listen now. It's going to show you the newest episode. Is going to show up on this sort of feed here. So you can see like love my Dateline, and there's a new episode. Or like this show just had a new episode come out, so you'll see like in chronological order the newest episodes that were released here, and you can view them all as well. So if we go back into there, just at the top here, you have the option to unfollow the show if you no longer want to get updates. You can copy the link to a show. So if you wanted to send this like in a text message, you could hit copy link, and then you can go to your text and you can paste that, and it'll send just a link to this this podcast as well. If you scroll down, you'll see all of the episodes. The newest is always at the top. So one came out about 10 days ago, and you can see that up there, or you can hit play the latest episode and it'll play it from there as well. But if there's something you want to listen to in particular, you can hit say all, and then it'll listen it in chronological order. So 2022 is top. And if you scroll down, you'll see the dates here, like March 4th, February 25th. And you'll always see like a little blurb about what the show's about, what the episode's about. So we'll go in here and click the three dots. You can see some more options. So download the episode. This is for if you're going like on a plane or somewhere where you're not going to have an active internet connection. You just hit download episode, and it'll store it on your phone or your device locally without having to stream it. So you can do that, and you'll see it's going to take a few seconds. They're not large files. They don't take up a lot of room. And you can see it has a little gray arrow there indicating that you can listen to it offline. So if you were, on a plane, it's the best example. You could listen to those episodes that are pre-downloaded. After you listen to it, you can come in here and hit remove. And that'll remove it off of your device, like if you're concerned about some storage space or something like that. And then just some other like play sort of options. And then once you select the episode, here's the title, and you hit play. And it's going to start playing. I have my headphones in. It's playing through my headphones. By default, you have these forward and back buttons, so you can skip 30 seconds forward or 30 seconds back, and you can just tap those a couple times. Jackie made a great point that when commercials come on, I usually tap this button a couple times, and you can assume that each commercial's 2 or 3 minutes. Just tap it twice or 3 times, you should be through a commercial. You set your volume here, or you can use the side button. It's not letting me select it here because I have my headphones, but you'll normally see a volume selector here. You can also change the speed. So you'll see here by default, it's just a one-time, just the normal speed, but you can slow it down or speed it up. If you want to listen to it at twice the speed, you could do that. I actually do this a lot if there is content that I want to listen to that I know has like someone that's talking slow or has like a lot of filler content, and I only got a few minutes. I'll crank it to 2 times speed and I'll just get through it. And it's obviously it requires a little more focus, but you can totally change or slow down the speed.
Harrison, I have a question.
Sure.
I have trouble listening in my car. Do I need to download it?
Could be, yeah. What kind of trouble do you have? Is it like
I can't
not
get it.
play smoothly, or
I can't get it. My phone's plugged in and I can't get it.
it could be that you need to download it offline before you leave.
Okay.
Possible.
Because you
Try that.
probably don't have internet in your car, Lynn. So you would want to go ahead and download it. and then
Okay, thank
and
you.
Play it from your car.
Thank you.
This last feature I'll call out, I use this a lot as well. It's the sleep timer. So I listen to certain podcasts when I'm just feeling restless. And I can just come in here and you can set it to turn off in a certain like time frame. If you think you're going to fall asleep and within the 30 minutes you set that, it's just going to turn off. So it doesn't just play all night, because by default, the podcast will finish an episode and then it's just going to go on to the next one. So I've fallen asleep listening to something and then I wake up and I've already played 25 episodes and I'm like, oh shit. And you have to go back and figure out which ones you missed and things like that. So set the sleep timer and then it'll turn off automatically in 15 minutes. So pretty cool there. This is my favorite app. It has everything I need. It's got the browse function, so if I want to like find something new, you can see it's like a typical news stream, right? So you can see like the top shows, top episodes as well. This is kind of cool. So you can see what's trending like per the day. So here's the daily episode. Oh yeah, it was about Bin Laden's successor. So it's the third most played episode of the day, and you can kind of see what people are listening to. All sorts of like different collections, right? So think of it like a movie store. What are you going to listen to, right? You can search by theme or search by show or whatever. So keep scrolling down. It's always, here's some depressing stuff. Good on here, and then you can just, of course, you have the search function as well, right? So come in here and go like NPR, and it's going to show you. Here's all of the NPR shows that it has, right? So most of them are on here. Fresh Air, Planet Money. You can come in. This is throwback there, and then I could go subscribe.
I didn't know they were still on. The Car Talk's still on?
I didn't know they're still on. But,
Oh my God.
Looks like they are releasing episodes. Yeah. Somebody
Oh
is.
my.
So yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any questions here?
Well, I just had one for you. Gosh darn it. Well, I put a good podcast in the chat and for people to consider the lifespan with Dr. David Sinclair. This wasn't going to be my question, but can you show people how to quickly like move through using the toolbar on the instead of just the 30-second one, and how to control the volume?
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank
Let
you.
me just make sure this. 1 second.
Gosh darn it, what was I going to ask?
Do it.
Oh, there's a bunch of them.
So we'll go back into here. The remaining sort of time in the episode is this line right here. And so if you press and hold on it.
Okay, I'm on the Zoom call now.
And you can scroll back and forth. So if you know that you're kind of roughly at a certain time, you can press and hold that slider and move it to there. And then you can hit play, or you can just go back. So just a simple press and hold, and then a slide.
That can be super helpful when you have a show that you know is going to have a big long introduction. Sometimes certain podcasts, they're just chitting and chatting or talking about the show, and you know that the show's not going to start for about 3 minutes or 3.5 minutes. So you could just slide the bar over and you'll probably be about right.
Jacqueline's an expert podcast listener. And I do the same thing. Skip all the intros and all that stuff. Just give me to the content. And then the volume, of course, is going to be down here. It's grayed out because I connected. Let me do. Yeah. So now it's playing in on my Sonos, but you can change the volume like here, and then here's that time speed up or slow down. You just tap it a bunch of times until you get to the speed that you want. So it's 1.5, it's 2, that's half time. Go to 1. And then you can see here, this is just an iPhone thing. You can see where it's playing. You can see it's playing on my iPhone in my speaker in my bedroom, my Sonos.
Oh,
you can change it.
That's what it was. Can you talk about I call them the schnotes, the show notes?
Oh, that's a good question. Down here.
Mm-hmm.
So if you keep scrolling down past all of the controls, you'll see that. And a lot of times there's like, links to things like that get referenced to inside of a podcast a lot. So like, hey, this is our guest's website. Like you'll see it in here, whatever content that the creator wanted to share. You'll see that down here. Here we have just a link to the Next Village website. So if you were to It's highlighted. If you were to click on that, it's gonna. Oh, what happened there?
Oh,
Fix that.
yeah, we're nextvillage.org, not .com,
Oh yeah, yeah.
but we'll fix that.
Gotta fix that.
Yeah.
There you go. So yeah, there's a link in there. So you'll see. Whatever. I also have my sleep timer still on here. I'm gonna turn that off. Yeah. Any other immediate questions? Is there anything else in here that I wanted to show?
And just for people that are, because I'm a Spotify user, I'm not an Apple podcast user, you can access the same notes. You just kind of access it in a different way. There's like a little.
They have. It's on Spotify, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is inside of Spotify. You'll see the episodes are going to be the same. And if you go here, oh God, why do you do this to yourself? Why don't you just use Apple Podcasts?
I have everything in one spot.
There we go. Same information, just kind of presented a little bit differently.
Mhm.
If you were to hit play,
You can't break a podcast. So if you click buttons, it's all fine. It's
Mhm.
always going to be okay.
You can
So
listen on so many platforms. You have to pick your side, or you can listen on both of them. And it looks like Judy has a question.
Yes, I have a couple of questions. The first question is, when you were showing the different parts, there was like a little thing that says iPhone and had an arrow to like the bedroom. So like when I do it, I only have like one choice. And so you had like 5 different choices. And so what do they represent, or how did you get them to do that?
yeah, that was kind of my bad. I maybe should have not shown that. Basically, this is just in my house, I have a Sonos system that's connected. So I have speakers in all of my rooms. And when I'm on my home network, it knows that I have these speakers around, so I can choose where I want the audio to go. So right now it's playing in my bedroom speaker, but I can move it to my kitchen or my living room. So this is just telling you where it's sending the audio. If you don't have any other connected speakers, you're only gonna see the one, which will be either your iPhone, or you'll see like if I have my headphones connected, you would see that here. This is just showing you the audio sources that you have.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Yeah. Another question I had was, when you were doing like you already had like the not born yesterday on the bottom, and it was kind of like playing, but then you were doing like a search and browse. So the one like on the bottom was not born yesterday. Is it still there, or like, yeah, there you go. Like, is it still there, and how do you get rid of it if you want to do the browsing, but you don't want to hear, the podcast that you are playing right now?
Yeah, great question. So if you're playing something, or if you have something like kind of queued up, you'll always see it down here at the bottom. So you'll see it's actually not playing. It gives me the option, like if I hit that, it's going to come up again and I can play it.
Right.
And then also same thing, like if I switch it down, it's going to show it's still playing. It's a shortcut, right? Like I could do a quick 30-second skip, or I could pause it all without having to like go back into a shortcut.
So then how do you end it? Because, like you're busy browsing, and you want to end the podcast that you are sort of playing.
Yeah, I just go in and hit pause, and then that's basically it. So like if this was playing.
can you show what you mean by hit pause? Like move your cursor so we can see where or I don't know if you can or not, but
I don't think you can on iPhone. But
these two slashes.
Oh yeah, sorry.
There, the arrow, when you click the arrow, your podcast will start playing. When you hit it again, the 2 bars come up that tell you you've paused it.
Right. So how do you like just totally get rid of it so that you're not playing, you're not pausing, but you just want to browse, and so you don't have any podcast that's actually being run, so to speak?
That's a good question. What I would do is I would just close the app and then open the app back up. Oh, it's still showing. It's funny. I don't know if you actually can turn. That's interesting. You might not be able to just like totally stop it. It's like this is queued up, but it's not playing.
Right.
That's a
Yeah.
good question.
Remove paywall before.
I'm gonna make a note and see if that's just, I never even noticed that before. But let me make a note and I'll get back to you.
Okay, thanks.
One thing I've done, considering that times are a little gloomy and whatnot, and you need to laugh, is I've done a search for my favorite comedians. And a lot of them have podcasts.
Mhm.
Good point.
Yep. So,
Also, as a note, if a podcast episode is showing up at the bottom of your screen, like it's on pause or play, it's not draining any extra battery or anything. It's not taking any extra battery than if the app was just open, if that's your concern.
No, it's just sort of distracting because I keep thinking that,
Oh,
I have to finish it, or I have to it's out there somewhere.
yeah, I see.
no, you can just ignore it.
Mhm.
Okay.
Other questions from folks?
Actually, I have another question.
Great.
Because when you were saying like you can, I didn't realize that, but you could actually go to like an episode, and you could you scroll further down, it gives you more like the episode notes. And I was wondering, because when I was looking at YouTube's, and they said that if you look at the YouTube, it's fine. But if you click on where it says description or notes, if there's links in them, that they may be dangerous. So I'm wondering if that's true with the episode notes, that if there are links in the episode notes, are they safe?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay,
From a reputable podcast. Yeah.
okay.
I mean, when creating Not Born Yesterday, which by the way, Harrison will show you how to get to from our website. There's an engineer who edits the podcast and puts all the show notes together so that you see those, that Lynn and Miriam feed him the information and then it shows up in the show notes. So it's the creator of the podcast that puts those links. And if you had a podcast where you were putting out scam links, you probably wouldn't last very long.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
just,
'cause
and they
yeah.
don't ask you for any information either. So you're not giving out any personal information. When you don't have to give out any personal information. You can just go and start listening. So in that sense, it's pretty nice. You don't have to, I mean, if you have a Spotify account, that's one thing, but you don't have to log in and create a username and password. You just go right to what you want to listen to and start listening.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Harrison, if he'll show us how to get to us from the website, but I flew somewhere the other day and I ended up being in an airport for like 6 hours longer than I was supposed to. And I just put on a podcast and walked up and down the concourse of the airport. And I just sort of didn't mind because I actually got to listen to something I wanted to listen to and I was entertained. And it was on the spot.
Yeah, I had a drive with a friend and we were both kind of over listening to music. It was like a 6-hour drive and we eventually just put on a podcast, and then halfway through we put it on pause and we just talked about what we had heard and then we put it back on play. And it's really fun to kind of share those interests with friends. And once you kind of get into a podcast, you can really find community through people that listen to the same thing, just based on the topic that you're choosing to listen to.
And a lot of the podcast hosts like go on tour now and like do live shows and stuff. It's got a cult following.
Yeah. Okay, and then Carol, it looks like you have a question as well.
Let's have Harrison go ahead and show him how to get to it from our website.
Oh yeah. Sorry, Carol, one moment.
So the quickest way on your phone would be just to navigate to the website itself. You could do it on on your desktop as well. But for demonstrations, I'm here on my phone. It looks like at the top here for the banner, we have listen to the podcast, and it is a clickable link. So if you do that, and it's going to take you to one of the podcast apps. So this is another Spreaker It's an iHeartRadio platform, but you could listen to it here as well. It has a link. This is the Apple Podcast link. So if you clicked on that, it's going to open up the Apple Podcast app, and you could listen to it as well. Or if you had a different app.
Yeah. Or you can just click events on the top of our website, and there's a drop down, and our podcast is up there.
Mhm.
Thanks, Erin.
Yeah, you can even listen to it actually right here in the web browser. Like if you didn't have an app, I hit play. Yep, it's playing on my phone, just right here on the web app. Pretty sleek.
We're the only village in the country with a podcast
That's
Oh.
great.
out of 250 villages. We're the first and the best.
I'll close one out. You can search too by if you have something played or unplayed. So like if you once you finish an episode, it marks it as played, and then it won't show up in your queue. So if you wanted to sort for things that like you haven't heard before, you can go to episodes and you could click like everything that's unplayed. And it's only going to show you things that are marked as unplayed. You go back and go to all. So it's helpful if you listen to a lot of podcasts and you're not sure which episodes you've listened to or not. It's one way you could just kind of sort, or you could even sort by things that you've downloaded as well. So I haven't downloaded anything. And of course, rate it as well. Right?
Wow. Oh, wow.
They got some great ratings.
Cool. That is what I got for you.
Thank you for viewing this Next Village video recording. We hope you enjoyed it. Please help us spread the word and tell friends and neighbors about Next Village events and services for seniors and adults with disabilities in San Francisco. Visit our website to learn more about our vibrant, growing network, as well as to view our calendar of upcoming Zoom and in-person events and activities in San Francisco. Our website is nextvillagesf.org. Contact us to join our email list to learn about events and resources for seniors in San Francisco. And subscribe to the Next Village YouTube channel by clicking the button below.